I found this weird guy on YouTube. He's recording things in a windy park. Just listen to this.
So I got great news. I had my last day at my job yesterday. So as of today, as of this morning, I'm an entrepreneur.
All right. Well, that's ballsy. What was this guy doing before?
Yesterday was the last day when I was still working my retail job.
Oh my, what a coincidence. I work in retail myself. I mean, I wonder what made him take this decision.
I've decided that as 2017 is coming, I want to take the leap and go full throttle on my podcast. I just want to do it. I think it's just time.
Oh, okay. Well, it may have been time as 2017 was coming, but is it time now that 2018 is here? Hello and welcome to Valiant Growth. This is episode 55, and this is also the season finale. So, the show has been running for, 20 months. So I started in April 26th. Is that correct? It's roughly correct. So yeah, I've been running for nearly 2 years. And I feel like it's time to start something new. But before we get there, I want to talk about what had happened to that guy's plan and what can be learned from it. This is partly to update Valiant Growth listeners going back, the people who saw that video as it came out and who were wondering over the course of about a year. That video was released on the 5th of December. Now it's the 2nd of January. That was the 5th of December of 2016 and we're in 2018 now, so it's been roughly a year. So I want to tell you the story, partly just as an update around this podcast, but more importantly, if you are planning to take an entrepreneurial leap, as I did, I think there are some lessons that I can share with you that I've learned. Some approaches that I kind of had to learn the hard way, and maybe you could get spared of them. So, at the present moment, I am working a retail job again, semi-part-time, depending on the workload. And I'm still doing the podcast, but as you can guess, it didn't work out the way I had wanted it to work out. Now, I do want to get to that point in the future. It is still a goal. I feel I'm better prepared now in January of 2018 than I was in December 2016. But I'm going to take a different path this time. So let me begin by giving you the full story of what had happened to fill in the gaps. So I started Valiant Growth, as I said, in April of 2016 with the goal of having this be a lifestyle business, as you could call it, insofar as it being my main source of revenue and just something that I do, and I wouldn't have to be employed in the end. I didn't know exactly when that would happen, but as I had seen others do it, I decided that I wanted to do it as well. Podcasting seemed like a really fulfilling activity, and it was something that I would have been very happy to be able to do and fund my life with that. And with some adjustments that I will talk about, I still do. So I started in April, and I had ups and downs as far as production went. Sometimes I got in the groove and I produced more, and then I got out of the groove and I produced less. There were a couple months where I produced nothing. So yeah, it were peaks and valleys. I had went through a couple of iterations of what kind of production I want to put forward. So many things have changed, but I was doing that ongoing, as well as having a part-time retail job, which kind of sort of covered my costs. It fell a little bit short, so I was very slowly going down on my not very large savings at the time. And I was hoping to increase the podcasting income to the point where I can quit. And that went on for a while, but as I was getting bored with my retail job, and there were some things I didn't like about it, my desire to do podcasting alone kept increasing and increasing. And then I listened to a podcast episode where somebody just mentioned that people are too cautious and too fearful because they really overestimate how much they need. They stay in the comfort zone because they assume that they need a million things, like they need the car and they need the big house and they need the Netflix subscription and blah, 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 blah. And they don't want to lose their grasp on it. And I was listening to that on a trip, which is on a bus, which is usually when big ideas come to mind. And I just paused it and I was like, yeah, I just need food and shelter. That's all I need. So what am I waiting for? I mean, I can figure that one out. I don't even need that much of a steady income or anything like that. Like I can make things work. I'm a pretty alternative guy. So let's just focus on what I need, the strict minimum of what I need. So I thought of that and I was like, hey, I can get those things sorted. Why not just quit the job and figure things out as I go along? I'm sure you heard this one. Jump off the cliff and build your wigs on the way down. That's supposedly entrepreneurship. Well, I've decided to do that and to start drawing down my savings gradually, and hopefully as the income increased, start rebuilding it again. And if it didn't happen fast enough, I had some friends who said, Philip, we got your back. You can... Well, I asked them and they said, yeah, if go on this plan, this plan, give it a shot. And if need be, you can live with us for free until this thing picks up. So I did that, and I had a very productive month in January, but I think I gradually got bored of the routine of just producing episodes, and I was getting more anxious, and slowly my production tapered off. There's a pretty good boost in January, but I couldn't keep it going. And I found myself increasingly being distracted and worried and procrastinating, doing other things, while having this, I gotta do this on my mind. And it was kind of a downward cycle. And eventually I did run out of my savings and I did move in with my friends. But after I moved in, I produced even less. And eventually, when I had £8 in my bank account, I said, okay, I want to rebuild some income because I can't live like this. The experience of going to zero was very rough on me. So yeah, so I had moved, by the way. This is not a detail, but at any rate, I picked up this job. I started rebuilding savings, and I'm still employed there. It's also retail, coincidentally, as the one before was as well. And I was working a lot, so that plus being kind of stuck with production, I occasionally released some things, but not that much. And eventually I move out from my friends, and now I have my own room again. Now, as far as revenue goes, I did get some money from YouTube. I still do a little bit, not enough. I did get a few donations. This thanks to Chris and Devin, who kept donating to me even when I was producing nothing for months. I appreciate your faith, guys. If you're still listening, I hope I can make it up going forward. I did some freelancing and I did pick up a few little interesting side jobs, but yeah, it wasn't enough. So bank account was going down and I took this other job. So for all intents and purposes, this was not a successful leap. If I look at what I was trying to accomplish, which was having that previous retail job be my last job and then be this swashbuckling entrepreneur and live the good life moving forward, that didn't happen. And I spent a lot of time, as you can imagine, thinking about why that didn't happen. And I got some interesting ideas that helped me make sense of it all. And I want to share these with you. A book that I've read in the summer that I felt was very, very relevant to my situation was a book called So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. The basic premise of the book is that I'll just say I'm a little bit rusty on the contents of this book, but what I remember is that he says that the idea of just following your passion, as much as it is glorified when it comes to these entrepreneurial leaps and starting businesses, doesn't work that well. And his point is that there's something else that determines whether you'll be successful or not. And that is what he calls career capital, which is the accumulation of your knowledge, your contacts, your skills, your resources determine whether you succeed or not with these leaps. And he especially criticizes people who just switch industries and start something they're pretty new to because it's what they believe in, and then they fail. And he contrasts it to people who instead do a little variation of what they were already doing and negotiate as time goes on. As they become more valuable, they negotiate better and better job or income earning situations, and they can claim better and better conditions insofar as how they do their work. As a side note, I think the book is good, and I recommend it to anyone thinking of becoming an entrepreneur at some point. I will say the first part, which is the argument against, I think he calls the passion hypothesis, it's a little bit shaky, but once you get past that and he goes into what do you do about it? It picks up from there. So, applied to my own situation, simply put, I didn't have the skills necessary to do what I wanted to accomplish. In particular, I didn't have the skill of self-motivating myself enough to create the kind of consistent production schedule that was required for the podcast to pick up. It did grow in listeners, and I am surprised to find that even after long periods of time, there's not much tapering off when I put out new content. But yeah, it did not reach that critical mass where I could have lived from donations and ad revenue and affiliate links, which is what I was planning to do. Another angle that I could take on this is that I didn't know myself enough to figure out that perhaps that wasn't the best strategy moving forward, given who I am and the kind of cycles that I experience and the degree of desire that I have towards novelty. Basically, I didn't take into account how I work because I didn't really know, because it wasn't tested enough. And in this period, I learned that, this plan needs adjustments. Another skill that I lacked was simply thinking things through, from a business point of view. I am now convinced that the donation ad revenue route was not really the best approach to take. And basically, I feel what I was doing in creating a lot of free content was I was running a business with a very strong marketing arm with nothing in terms of production going on. Now, there are people who make that work, but an easier and more sustainable model would involve, okay, use a podcast as a marketing arm for something else, for some kind of product or service. While I went in all marketing and hoping that that would somehow convert to donations and money, which is a pretty difficult route to take, and which I find unappealing for other reasons that I think I will mention going forward. Another thing that I didn't know at the time was how important momentum is for me. I'd like to be able to just do things completely of my own accord and just set my own schedule, as in, like, decide what would be the best idea, what I would actually enjoy the most to do in a day, and then actually be able to do it, which is very often productive work, because that gives me pleasure. But I didn't have that skill formed enough at the time, and I still don't. Maybe I'm a little bit closer. Maybe we've been refining this with my friend Nick Hazelton for a pretty long time, and it's getting better. But yeah, I didn't have that skill of I'll just make my own schedule. And I actually find that back then and today as well, that having some kind of external commitment, that doing something else gives me momentum and keeps things going and cuts down on these long cycles where I'm just feeling stuck and I'm trying to just get away from things by playing games or watching videos or whatever, taking long walks. I often get most of my work done right before I'm about to go to a workplace. As that hour approaches, I'm like, okay, I want to get something done of my own work before I go there. And that kind of structure helps. I hope to not need it in the future, but just taking that jump from having these recurring things that I would go to that are external to just me setting everything up and deciding everything and managing everything on my own was too much. It was too challenging. Another challenge that exceeded my capacities was the idea that I would be able to deal with a unusual or challenging living situation plus this challenge of building my own business. Again, I hope to be able to do this in the future where I can just go around with some kind of portable recording studio and just record anywhere and not care. But I'm not there at the moment, and I wasn't there a year ago. And as I moved in with my friends, that created difficulties that as I had to adapt to living in a pretty small space and all sorts of challenges around that. That just made it more difficult. I'm really grateful that they offered it and that I could be there, and it was a good experience for other reasons. But putting this all together, like this pressure, plus trying to cope with living in the midst of a family and like adapting to everybody and baby and podcasting and things like that. That again was way too much of a spike. So I thought that, if food and shelter is taken care of, I'll find some way to record. I'll find some way to work. It doesn't matter. Well, didn't quite work like that. That was too big of a leap, and I didn't realize that at the time. And another thing that I didn't realize at the time is how much I need novelty. I mentioned this before, but I've since learned that I'm the kind of guy who has a lot of enthusiasm for something, and I can keep that going, but I will need breaks, and I need to do something else. And this was true with Valiant Growth. I had points where I was like, I want to do nothing related to personal development or podcasting or anything like that. But I had no other plans, so I just felt I got stuck in this situation where, this is the way forward, but I'm feeling a lot of resistance to doing it. But I have no alternatives. Or the alternatives are a distraction from the way forward. I didn't realize that I need to structure my life in such a way that takes this into account. And there are people out there who will do the same thing, do a great job every day and enjoy that a lot. And then there are other people like me who need that switch up. And when enough time passes, my interest peaks again, and then I can get back in the groove and really do it with very little resistance. But there has to be that breathing room, and I didn't know that. And though it's hard to tell, it's possible that I went in with not enough savings. Maybe if I had more time, I would have figured these things out and rebounded at some point. But yeah, at any rate, I didn't have too much, and getting closer and closer to zero was really scary. And I don't operate too well with that kind of low level anxiety going forward. That drains my energy, and it drains my ability to really do the best thing in the moment, and it tempts me to just distract my mind somehow. So going with Cal Newport's idea, I lack the career capital, a little bit different than what he says, but the basic idea is I just lack the skills mainly to do this in December 2016. And I'm still not there. So let me move on to some of the solutions that I've figured out. I've hinted to quite a lot of them, but let me spell it all out. One very powerful thing that I did, and I think it helped me a lot, was creating a savings schedule. So as I was approaching the zero in my bank account, I decided that, okay, I'm not playing this game again. I just cope really poorly with decreasing savings. My need for safety is absolutely not being met in situations like that. So at some point during this year, I've made an agreement with myself in that freedom is important, and this whole project is about freedom, but I need to take my desire, my need for safety into account as well if I want to succeed. So I came up with a savings schedule where I drew out a plan and I said, I'm going to save this much per month in a way in which in 10 years I can get to financial independence, and I'm going to hold this sacred. So I'm not going to take decisions that contradict this or that put this into significant jeopardy. So if I am to gain the freedom that I wish to achieve, I have to do it respecting my need for safety and sticking to this minimum sense of momentum of going forward, of building savings. And that has since evolved then. I've drawn the whole thing out to like different stages. And basically I'm covered from now, I'm 25 now. Well, not yet, but so at any rate, I've extended it all the way to 64. And after the first 10 years, the following phases are optional, and they're more about first increasing a little bit how much I can spend, and then having money for impact in the world. I think I'll talk about this at some other time. But at any rate, yeah, having set this into stone dissolved the anxiety. And now I know that whatever happens, I'm going to stick to this, and I'm not going to be in a situation where it's going down again. Now, if whatever happens and I go down to zero by some external force, I'm pretty sure I can deal with that, and I can just get going again. But I'm going to do my best to respect this need as it exists today. Something else that helped throughout the year was being in a mastermind, as well as having a regular weekly meeting with a productivity partner, so-called friend of mine, where we review our week and we talk about our goals and what things went well, what we need to do in the future, what we can learn from these things. And there were times where it wasn't the best of experiences, because I would come in and I'd be like, okay, this week went by and I did nothing. But even then, I could share that, and I could get some feedback from that, and having that support system really helped me. And I think I would be in a worse position. I'm sure I would be in a worse position, and this whole experience would have been much harder if I had been trying to digest this all on my own. So if you want to do something like this, I suggest having a support network before you go forward. I'm sure I'll talk about masterminds and productivity partners in the future, if I haven't already. So yeah, another solution that I mentioned already is maintaining a job for the momentum. So I've come to recognize that, that momentum and a little bit of external structure, I need that, and that helps. So if you want to do something like this and you're having difficulty with keeping things going, maintaining the momentum, that can be helpful. Because even if, let's say you have a down cycle where you didn't have a very good week, and you didn't produce anything, but you're just in a bad mood. But at least you'll probably do a good job in a workplace, and that's valuable. If you can find a place where you can do that, that's good. You know that you've accomplished something, and you get a little bit of the creativity and challenge and learning needs met, even if it's not the most exciting job in the world. I've in fact found that some days when my mood was at its lowest points, actually going into work helped a lot. So I'm much more hesitant to just quit cold turkey right now, in addition to it not being conducive as far as the savings schedule go. It's just good to have that structure. Another solution that I found is that I personally need my own space, and so just having my own room where I have complete control over what's going on is important. And this may or may not be important for you, and you may not do this extreme frugality stuff that I've done anyway as far as the housing conditions go, but you can generalize this insofar as the solution to making this smoother as a rule stating, don't take on too many different highly challenging things at the same time. So don't pack new and innovative breakthroughs and radical new stuff all together. Sometimes it's cool to stretch yourself a little bit, but if you go too far, that's too much. So if you're taking this entrepreneurial leap, don't also move to a new place and walk 100,000 steps a day from now walking, and start 10 polyamorous relationships. You get my drift. Just take things one step at a time. Another thing that I found very useful is focusing on thinking about, in this entrepreneurial leap, thinking about what kind of work I like to do and what kind of work I don't like to do. And just going by this assumption of, no, this is the best way, and I'll do everything because I'm a superhero, hasn't worked for me. What I feel works much better instead is to figure out, this is what I like, this is what I dislike. Let's try to either outsource what I dislike or mold the business in a way where I have to do less of it. So for instance, something that held me up for a long time and just delayed the whole production process was that I had a bunch of interviews queued up. If you were listening to them, like I think I had 4 or 5 in a row. And I've learned that editing interviews is not something that I enjoy very much. It's interesting work in itself, but it takes so much time compared to recording a solo episode, and produces such, in my opinion, the results that it produces are a lot less impressive. When we're talking about something carefully crafted and very high value per minute, doesn't really work with interviews, and I'm sure some people really enjoy it. So just my point is, I didn't, and having 4 or 5 of them in a row to edit, that just took it out of me completely, and that just added huge delays where I just didn't want to touch it. What I did learn instead was that I really like tightly crafted solo episodes, and that gives me more joy. So that's a change I'm going to implement in the future. And I'll just say this, I think the interviews were very valuable, and I was a little bit sad to have kept them in the archives for so long. I think they were good, but still, it's just not the kind of work that appealed to me that much. And I will talk about the changes on this front going forward. Another thing, and this is business related, is, as I said, especially if you're going kind of on a podcasting or YouTube or kind of that route, I think it's very valuable to have a product or several products developed first before you take the leaps. I think it's significantly easier to build up marketing for something that exists already than to have marketing and create a product to attach to it. Or, more generally speaking, have a proven revenue model before you go all out, which is pretty sensible. And I heard that myself. I didn't take the advice, but hey, maybe you will. And finally, if you have the strong desire for novelty like me, don't ignore it and bake that into what you're trying to do as well. So I think for me, cycles work really well. So moving forward, I kind of need to design the work in cycles where I'm not doing the same thing every day, where there are big significant shifts of what kind of work and what kind of fields I'm working in. So I can stay, and my mind can stay engaged and fresh, and I can get the maximum enjoyment out of it. Bigger picture, yeah, just I think if we look at this whole, what I learned from this whole thing, big conclusion is don't assume yourself away. Don't just follow a formula that has worked for other people, but consider very carefully who you are, how you work, and adapt it to yourself. And it can be tempting to be like, no, I'm gonna change for this because this is such a meaningful goal, and I'm gonna rise to the challenge and I'm gonna overcome. But truth be told, yeah, maybe you can do that, but isn't it better to design things that fit who you are? So that's my suggestion. On the other hand, sometimes you don't know who you are until you challenge yourself. So there's kind of a chicken and an egg situation going on, and you can't guess everything before you start. I think I knew all of these things that I mentioned to some extent, but I wasn't clear about how important they are to me, and going forward, I just learned it. So do your best and don't follow formulas just because they worked for other people. But also, if you start get things going and you see some problems, be flexible and also just appreciate the learning experience, which I do, which has been really the best part of 2017. It's true in general that strain helps us understand ourselves much better. And while it's foolish, it's probably not going to pan out too well if you put yourself too big of a challenge. at the same time, some strain combined with introspection can really clarify your understanding of who you are. So that's what I learned from my failed entrepreneurial leap. And hopefully the next cycle will be better. I feel like I'm getting closer and closer every time. This has not been the first time I tried to do a big switch. I think this is attempt 3 or 4 in 3 or 4 years. So this keeps repeating over and over again. But I feel like I end up in a better place every single time. And maybe if I make it less of a leap and more of an organic thing, it'll work better. Or maybe there are just times where I just get fed up with everything and I gotta do it. But yeah, I encourage you to, if you have an idea, don't be intimidated by what I went through. It was a good experience overall. There were some difficult moments in it, but it's infinitely superior to not having done it and living with the regret. Although I just don't feel like I'm that kind of person anyway. So yeah, give it a shot, and whether it works or not, you'll be a richer person in the end. In the last part of this episode, I want to talk about the season finale and what it means. So this has been the first season of Valiant Growth, and it's been a pretty experimental almost 2 years where I tried a number of things in every kind of front, and I had sharpened my understanding of what I'm trying to accomplish much better. And I've thought a lot about how I want to get things going. So I've decided to put a stop here and make, okay, this is season 1, and then start the second one with a clean slate in the format and the way that I think will be the highest quality and the most enjoyable for myself as well. I want to thank you for listening throughout this first season, throughout these nearly 2 years, whether you joined on board recently or whether you've been with me from the start. Many things have been said in such occasions that I don't want to necessarily repeat, but I will say that it is a truly beautiful experience to put yourself out into the world and have people listen and just see the numbers and get the emails and get the comments. It changes a man. It changes a man, and it is a truly a moving thing when I think about it. I'm filled with joy that my thoughts have resonated with you, and the things that I thought valuable, you thought valuable as well. I now know that there are hundreds of people who are interested in what I am, and there are hundreds of people whom I can find a common voice with, and having that thought in my mind, having that knowledge, that information makes me all the more optimistic moving forward. So thank you very much. In season 2, I want to create content that inspires action. This has been my goal from day 1. Well, day -1, basically. I always wanted to produce something that's actionable, and that really moves beyond just listening to stuff, and actually really tangibly helps you improve your life. But I wasn't all that clear about how to accomplish that, and I think as I thought about it the first year and then in this year, I think I'm getting closer to it, and I think I can formulate it better. So I want to drive action. Most podcasts drive consumption. Most podcasts are designed to be consumed in a semi-distracted phase of mind and either entertain or educate, but the education often is just maybe planting the seed of an idea, but then you are left to develop it on your own, and including figuring out the next steps of how to do that. I've personally spent thousands of hours of listening to light personal development material, which slowly added up, but the return on investment wasn't very good. So I would plug something in, and it's an 8 hours long podcast, rambling on, and I'll walk around or I'll play a game, and at the end of it, maybe I'll gain an idea or two. It's not bad, and that can work. And if that's the focus that you can afford, that's the best resource out there. But I don't want to be that podcast anymore. I want to be a podcast where you kind of have to sit down and listen to it. I want to be like a cinema film compared to something going on a screen in a pub. In one case, there's just some background noise and you occasionally look at it and that's about it. I'd like to create something where it's valuable enough and it's good enough that somebody turns off the lights and there's silence and there's a huge screen and somebody set up a whole audio system so that you can get every little angle, every detail, and just soak it in as an experience. That's where I want to get. That's the podcast that I want to create. And also I want to create action in you after every episode. So I don't want to leave you with like, oh, that's an interesting idea, I'll think about what to do. No, I want to be like, these are the action steps and here are some tools where you can actually do it. So if you want to invest the time and you got the energy, that time spent listening can be well used and can be directly translated into action. So for instance, there's a worksheet and you're like, okay, I listened to this. I'm going to sit down, take a piece of paper, whatever, digital version, and I'm going to work through this and I'm going to get some really high concentrated value from the time that I put in. The truth is, it goes both ways. And every time I consume versus consume and then work on it, there's a huge difference in what I get. And to be honest, even with not very good material, if you sit down and you actually start working through things based on it, you can get a lot out of it. But I want to create this exchange where the content is good and then your work is good, and then together we create this really great value and really create huge leaps forward in your happiness and in how well you can meet your needs and achieve the things that you want to achieve. I also want to create some anticipation when it comes to Valiant Growth, some excitement of it coming out. And where I experienced this the most is, say, take a TV show that I really like versus a YouTube channel that I'm subscribed to. In one case, the YouTube channel's case, yeah, if something comes out, I'm happy about it and I will watch it, and that's good. And if it doesn't, I might be like, oh, what happened? I wonder when the next thing is coming out. But in a carefully crafted, really well-made TV show that just appeals to me, that eagerness is just building and building and building. So they released the last episode of one season, and I'm like, oh no, it's 8 more months till the next one. I just want to get it, and I want to create that kind of excitement. Now, it's gonna take some learning to do that, and just having the intention is not enough. But I just want to let you know that this is something that I'm working towards, and I think a big part of of why a good TV show is better than a good YouTube video. It's the amount of care and attention and focused, concentrated value being delivered. It's thinking about the little things and adding in the artistic value. So when you're making a vlog, you're filming yourself, even this, what I'm recording right now, it's stream of consciousness. And that's good, but any kind of beauty or well-crafted phrase, a good spin of the word, it's accidental at best. You can get better at delivering more and more of it, but it doesn't compare to something that's built carefully and the elements are thought out. So that's what I'd like to work towards, and hopefully I can create this effect. And I also want to put more artistry into what I do, maybe become a little bit more poetic, a little bit more lyrical, use the language in more interesting ways. And I want to be more playful as well and add new, creative, fun, unexpected things into the episodes as well. So these are my intentions. You'll be the judge of how well that works. As far as seasons go, I want to emulate the TV show style of having a season where you release things and then there's a waiting period. And that could help a lot with both on my end, making things more cyclically interesting. So I can swap around a little bit of what I'm doing. It will give me time to develop products off season that I can promote and that I can make revenue from, and that are even more concentrated value that return even better value on time. And then I can sell those to you during the season. So between season 1 and 2, the first thing that I want to create is going to be a master cut of season 1. I'm going through the whole archive. I'm going to take out and remove the episodes that are not very good. They just don't deliver the value for the time, in my opinion. And I'm going to edit even the good ones. And basically what I want to do is put together something that's a condensed, improved version of season 1, the season 1 director's cut, where I take out the fluff, I re-edit things with my present mindset and not change it from like the old approach, add some new content in, organize it in a logical fashion. So I want to put together a product where you put a little bit of money down, but then you get something that's much, much higher value. So you could spend whatever, I don't know exactly, but you could spend, let's say, 50 hours listening to the whole thing and listen to all the intros and all this tangential stuff and all the episodes that don't really quite cut it. Or you can pay a small amount of money and get something that's really high value. So that will be the first product that I will be working on. And related to that, I will also I'm planning to create a book version of the best things that I've learned in these 2 years of personal development, content creation, the best lessons, the best tools, put them into written form, because there are things that are not that well explained while you're running around and things like that. And just distill it and create a booklet. And that's going to be the second product. I will release things between the seasons that will be less structured. And if you're listening to the podcast version of this, I recommend that you subscribe to Valiant Growth, the YouTube channel, Valiant Growth, because my plans are to put out some videos. Some of them will just be me talking, and some of them, they're actual graphs and numbers that I want to show you on these subjects. So they'll bridge the gap a little bit between seasons, but my main focus after I hit publish on this episode will be to create this first Valiant Growth director's cut product. Longer term, and I'll share this with you so I can, in 1 year, create a new episode and why I didn't accomplish it. But longer term, I also have a procrastination audio course planned with my friend Nick Hazelton. I mean, this one is actually more than planned, and we're well into recording it, but it's going to take a while until we create the finished product. So that'll be attacking procrastination from different facets and putting all the work that we've done together as productivity partners, all the lessons learned into one audio course. And I also wish to create a budgeting course. I've improved a lot over time in this field, and I think budgeting is, financially speaking, the single most impactful thing that you can do to get things going, get clarity, build savings, have a sense of control. I think that's basically step number one. And for some people do it on their own, but for other people it's really helpful to get that impulse. So if that's something that you're interested in, I should have a course coming out sometime in 2018. So keep listening to the podcast. So thank you very much for sticking it out with me for Valiant Growth Season 1. It's been a joy and a privilege to do this together. I'll see you on YouTube and then in Season 2. And until then, I dare you to flourish today.